Hello and welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Sian Wiltshire and I am your worship associate today. I'm joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, and Beth Syverson, our director of music ministries. Also with us is Karen Magoon-Pearson, our Director of Religious Education for Children and Youth, and we all welcome you this morning. We'd also like to recognize the many volunteers that have helped put this service together today. They're over there if you care to read the list. We respectfully recognize that our church property rests on Ahachimen and Tongva land. As Unitarian Universalists, we have many different beliefs, but we are one loving community. We are bound together, not by a common set of rules or beliefs, but rather a covenant. A covenant is a promise that whatever our beliefs, we accept one another and encourage each other in spiritual growth. We affirm that all life has inherent value and that all existence is interconnected. We strive for justice and compassion in our deeds and relationships, and we are committed to creating a welcoming community without regard to the traits that sometimes divide people. To our Roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phones. For our Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat. And I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. Later in the service, we'll have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself if you'd like to do so. Okay. All right. Now, lighting our chalice for us today is Jaden Magoon-Pearson. He's 11 years old, he's in 5th grade, and he likes to read and play with Transformers. There you go. Okay, so just light it on this. All right. Let our worship begin with the lighting of our chalice as we say our unison affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. Light it again. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. This we affirm together.
Very good. Our opening song is called Love Will Guide Us. Please stand as you are comfortable and we'll sing this together.
So this morning, we're going to be doing something a little bit different here in our service, and we're going to be looking at proposed changes to Article 2 of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws. And some of you who are visitors or are new here might be like, okay, bylaws, yay. But this is going to give you a really good idea about who we are as Unitarian Universalists. So And there's going to be also, after the service, an opportunity for everyone, member, friend, visitor, everyone who would like to discuss more about this. It'll be short, 30 minutes. We're going to keep it to 30 minutes. So we'll invite you to go get your coffee and then come back there. So I want to begin with these words by Hope Johnson, who was a beloved minister and leader in our association who passed away about 3 years ago. She wrote this. She said, "We are one. A diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one."
All right, I'm going to ask you all to help us. You're going to have a job. Just follow me and do the clapping. Keep your heart wide open, though the waves want to push you around. You've got to keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. You've got to keep your heart wide open till the waves want to push you around. You've got to keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. You gotta keep your heart wide open. The waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Until my faith brings me back to solid ground. Thank you. Good job.
So our Time for All Ages story, we got some show and tell. And it's called "It's Not What You Believe, But How." So, when we were first born as babies, right, we didn't really believe anything. We were clean slates, as it were. Babies aren't born Buddhists or Baptists or believers of any sort. But soon after we arrive into the world, we start gathering ideas, right? We pick up beliefs and ideas from people and animals and our families, and we collect them about the stars and comments on how it all got started. We accumulate good beliefs about what's good and bad, maybe about what's healthy or not, maybe what's important in life, right? And all these beliefs we get from our parents, we get from playmates, we get it from school, we get it from TV, all sorts of different places. And they go into maybe what we might call a belief bag, which kind of sits in our brain somewhere, our belief bag. And all these beliefs, right, come together. But most religions define themselves by what they believe, right? So they only have maybe one thing in here, right? This is what they believe, and by what's inside the bag. So Christians, for example, believe in God and Jesus, and Muslims believe in Allah and the Prophet Muhammad, and Buddhists believe in what's called the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. But Unitarian Universalists, we don't have one set of beliefs. What makes us different is the way that we Unitarian Universalists carry our beliefs. Because they have different ways of holding your belief bag. So for example, some people, they hold it like this. No, you can't put anything else in here, right? They clutch it close, it's sealed. No, I don't want to entertain any other ideas. They're all closed. We call these people closed-minded. And some other people, they kind of hold it, the opposite. They don't pay much attention. Something might fall out, something might drop in. They're kind of lazy about it, right? They might pick up something from the internet and believe that, or they might pick up something from a talk show host and believe that, or anybody that they meet on the street, right? So these are sloppy thinkers. And then there's other people who maybe they use their beliefs a bit like this. You believe in peace, right? And I'm going to clobber you if you don't believe in peace. They may sound really sweet and nice, but they like to clobber people. But that's not the Unitarian Universalist way. What we do is we carry our bags in front of us mindfully, and we go, yeah, okay, I like that one. No, I'm not going to do that one. This is one of the ways that we carry our bags so that we're thoughtful about it, right? Also so that we could share with our neighbors. We can go, hey, have you heard of this? Isn't that cool? So for us, it's less important about what you believe than is how you hold your beliefs. It's how you acquire them, how you share them, and above all, basically what you do with them, because we don't clobber people, right? That's our time for all ages today. I'm going to invite Karen McGinn-Pearson up here to sing our children out. We'll sing them to their religious education classes. Kids that are so excited to get to their RE classes.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So we're going to start. I want to talk to you a little bit about something called polity. That's a fancy word. I learned it in seminary, and just means how we govern ourselves. Now, before your eyes start glazing over, polity is cool. Okay, I just want to put that out there. Polity is cool. All right, so most people refer to the Unitarian Universalist Association as our denomination, right? We're Unitarian Universalists, and we have the Unitarian Universalist Association. But here's the thing, we're actually not really a denomination per se. Instead, we're an association of congregations. Now, you might think, okay, that's semantic, Sean, okay, that's somewhat true. I think it's okay to refer to us as a denomination. But there's actually a difference between us and what most people call denominations, and that's what I wanted to show you this morning. So I'm going to give you this Polity 101. And some of you may have already heard this before, but it bears repeating. So back in the day, we're going to do a little history lesson, flying through about 1,500 years of history. All right, so back in the day when churches were first organizing, so this was Christianity, when it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, they were trying to figure out how to organize themselves. And they based it on the Roman army, right? So you had the Caesar at the top, and then you had his generals below that, and then you had majors or whatever, I don't know, they're called the knights, I can't remember what they were called. I should remember this, but anyway, degree in Latin, you would think. But anyway, and then of course you had your frontline soldiers. So instead what they did is they put the Pope at the top, bishops, which were your regional people, right? Then you had priests and ministers, who were sort of the frontline people. Then you had your laity and your congregation. Now, they didn't actually start out this way. It was much more egalitarian in the early church. So this is happening around 300 or so AD. So the Pope is the head guy. He's like Jesus or Paul or Peter. He's the visionary, as it were. The bishops, the regional, all that sort of thing. All right. So now this is, if you know different ways of governance, this is actually a very efficient way of governing. It's probably the most efficient way you could do it, because if the person at the top makes the decision and basically it all gets figured out below, right? This is the form of governance that most of us actually deal with every single day, right? You've got, if you're working in a business, you've got the owner or CEO of the company, and then you've got the directors and the frontline managers, and then the frontline people after that. So this is something we're very used to, is understanding. The problem with this model is that it's the most corruptible form of governance, right? Because if that person at the top goes bad, it kind of, as they say, rolls downhill, right? So by about 1500, this had gotten really bad, okay? There was the Catholic Church, which was, Catholic, if you didn't know, means universal, so it was the universal church. There was one church, that's how they thought of themselves at any rate. But it basically was incredibly corrupted. They had these things called indulgences, which there's no biblical background for that. They were making things up in the Bible. They were word hoarding, wealth hoarding. They were corrupted. There was a lot of decadence, all this sort of thing. And people were starting to get really peeved because the people down there at the bottom were not reaping any of the benefits. It was only staying at the top. So this guy named Martin Luther, you might have heard of him, not the guy in the 60s, the one he was named after. He protested against this corruption, right? Proposed these big changes. That's why they called them Protestants. They were protesting. Now, the Catholic Church decided to kick him out. So he said, instead of crawling into a hole and going, oh darn, he actually said, well, fine, I'm going to start my own religion, which became known as Lutheranism, right? And also right around this time, if you remember King Henry and his libido, kept wanting to, he wanted to divorce Catherine of Aragon, and he asked for it from the Pope, and the Pope said no. So he said, fine, I'm going to start my own religion as well. So, and that is basically, what they did is they lopped off the Pope. Both of these people said, we don't want a Pope, but we're going to put the bishops in charge. And the bishops are also, in the Greek word for them is episcopal. So this is where Episcopalians come from. They are ruled by their bishops. So you've heard of the Archbishop of Canterbury, right? That's in the Anglican Church. Anglican is another word for Episcopalian. So, but later in that same century, in the 1500s, there's another guy named John Calvin, and if you want to boo, that's cool, because he's not all that great of a guy. But anyway, he decided, I shouldn't say that because he's kind of the guy for many people, but he killed one of our people, so that's why I'm kind of like, don't like him very much. But anyway, thank you. Boo, yeah. So, John Calvin, he believed that no, not the bishops, it should be the ministers. They're the frontline kind of managers. They should be the ones in charge. And so the Greek word for priest is presbyter, so they are known as the Presbyterians. Okay? I know. See, this is actually, polity is cool. Did I not say polity is cool? All right. So by the 17th century, people are still trying to figure out all of this stuff. And then you've got those pesky Puritans, right? They want to go to a new world, what they called a new world, to practice their own religion. But really, it wasn't so much that they wanted to practice their own religion, as they wanted to actually practice their own governance, because they believed that they should choose their own leaders. Okay? Now, if you're a monarch, how do you feel about that? So, yeah. Queen Elizabeth is like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. So these people, these are our political ancestors. They are called Congregationalists, and they put the congregation in charge. So the congregation chose their leaders, not the bishops, not the Pope. The congregation chooses their leaders, okay? So this is what happened. So when the Puritans came here, they started spreading out, and these individual churches started popping up everywhere. And they were self-contained, right? Self-managed, everything. And they might have slightly different theologies, so they might be very conservative as Congregationalists, like the Puritans. They might be Unitarian. They might be Universalist. They might be like United Church of Christ. They might be Baptist. All of these started popping up all the way until into the 19th century. But even in the 17th century, as these churches were starting to pop up everywhere, and then there were other churches, right, that were part of denominations popping up everywhere, the people, the powers that be, the governing bodies there were like, how do we deal with these congregationalist churches? And part of it had to do with taxes, because you had to be a member of a church to be taxed and all this sort of thing. And so what they did was they came up with this thing called the Cambridge Platform, okay? So I know it says something like platform of church discipline. Ooh, that sounds scary. Actually, it's really not. It was basically this idea of like, okay, we're all individual, but how can we support one another, right? How are we going to get along with one another? They said that they could admonish each other, right? Which was a little bit kind of funny, like the worst that they could do is say, well, we're not going to share a pulpit with you. Like, 'cause sometimes, like, if a minister wanted to go on vacation, they would say, this minister over here can come and preach. And that was the worst that they could really do. There was really no discipline going on at any rate. But they did support one another. And a lot of these things we do today. We don't do the Lord's Supper, so that's not one we need to worry about. But we do financially support some poor churches. We do letters of recommendation. If you move to another congregation, I'm happy to send a little note over to the minister there and say, hey, this is a lovely person, and, you know, all that sort of thing. So all these sorts of things. You know, we consult with one another. I'm going through, you know, we're going through a capital campaign and building a new sanctuary, and we've talked to other congregations and other ministers about how to do this. So this is one of the ways we still do this today, this Cambridge platform. But the idea was, however, that we decided sometime around the late 18th, early 19th century, we decided to form denominations. There was enough Unitarian churches and enough Universalist churches. Now, they were separate denominations at this time, but there were enough of them. And there was this thing that was happening in the US at the time in the late 1800s, late 1800s, early 1700s, around there, was what's called the Great Awakening. This was this big, passionate, you know, tent revivals. You think about, you know, if you've ever heard the preaching of, you know, you are a sinner in the hands of an angry God and he's holding you over the fire, you know, that kind of thing, this damnation-heavy type of talk. And the Universalists and the Unitarians did not like this, so that we need to form as a denomination so we can really support one another. But how do you do this and not go back to that hierarchical model? They didn't want to do that. So this is what they did. They put the congregations at the top and in charge. The congregations choose their minister and their board. I have tenure. The board is elected every year, right? The district, we elect our district representatives, which I jokingly call them bishops. They don't have that much power. But they elect our district, and we elect our officers and the board of the UUA. So in our way, we are congregationalist, right? So this is how we work. And I mention a lot of this because a lot of people don't know when they come into our churches, they assume, for example, that I have all the power. Wouldn't that be nice? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So the board and I share responsibilities here, but we report to you all. That's why we have an annual meeting and we have annual reports and everything, so you know what's going on, right? Okay, that's a lot to take in. Right? And it would be this morning that I have dry mouth. So let's take a few moments to take a few deep breaths, take this all in, and what you think that it means for us as an association or a denomination, however you want to think about it. And when you're ready, Beth is going to lead us in song.
We're going to drop into our bodies now. We're going to come back to the mind in just a moment. Please rise as you are comfortable, and we're going to, I give you a choice. You can do feet or hands or voice, or all three. It's up to you. So let's start by marching. We're going to be putting one foot in front of the other. You got to put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Don't you give up.
Don't you give up.
Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I can't remember the verse. Lift up your eyes.
Lift up your eyes.
Don't you despair.
Don't you despair.
Look up ahead.
Look up ahead.
The path is there.
The path is there.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared.
I know you're scared.
Well, I'm scared too.
Well, I'm scared too.
But here I am,
But here I am,
right next to you.
right next to you.
You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love.
Okay, so why should you care about governance? Well, because democracy is one of our biggest spiritual practices, not only in this church, but I think as a nation. And it kind of doesn't work unless y'all participate and know what's going on, right? So this proposed change to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws is kind of a big deal for many of us. Now, many churches are out there struggling with whether or not to endorse marriage equality or affirm all genders, and yeah, that's not an issue with us. Not an issue. So what we're talking about is, who are we? Who are we now? And do we want to enhance that or change that at all? So some of you may remember I did speak about this last November when they first put out the first draft. There was a team of 5 people that were doing it. And since then they've listened to that feedback and they've made significant changes. And so we're going to kind of go through some of that today. So, and you have a handout, right? So I want to make sure that if you want to try to do things. So currently, right now, this is what our current principles and sources are. And these are about, this is our, I don't want to say statement of faith, but I guess that's the best way to put it. This is kind of what many people would say define us as Unitarian Universalists. We have these 7 principles, the inherent dignity and worth, all the way down to the 7th, where we respect the interdependent web of all existence. And then we list out our sources of wisdom. So this is all part of Article 2, and there's many articles in the bylaws, right? This is just Article 2 that we're looking to change, and changing some of the things. And I just also want to note, by the way, so these are all, then you have your list, and Joelle, if you need a list, here you go, of them, there you go. There's also more to Article 2. There's a purpose statement, a non-discrimination statement, and a freedom of belief statement. We don't normally talk about those a lot. We talk about the principles and sources more than anything. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. So now I also want to mention that our Article 2 contains our purpose as an association, right? The principles guide us and names our sources of wisdom. So let me see here. I'm going to put this here. I want to say, first of all, there is nothing wrong with our principles and sources. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're wonderful, and there's nothing in there to object to, at least not for me. I don't object to anything that's in there. But some people believe that that they don't quite match who we are now. And we are required by our bylaws, and you'll see it actually at the bottom of, I think, page 2, that we are required every 15 years to review our principles and sources. And do they still reflect who we are? Okay. So for decades now, our congregations have been battling racism and systemic oppressions at various times with these really big pushes, right? So first it was in like the 1960s and the 1970s where we were at the forefront. We were there marching by King at Selma. We were doing all this incredible work around anti-racism, but also sexism as well. And to some extent in the 70s, we started addressing homophobia. But unfortunately, there were some things that happened that we didn't look internally to our own systems and to what was going on there. And so in 1969, there was a big walkout of people of color in our denomination, particularly African-American UUs, who walked out because they didn't feel heard. So that was really devastating for a lot of people. And so again, back and then, you know, trying to figure out how to recover from that. In the 90s, we battled a lot of LGBTQ issues. Racism again came up. But again, I felt a little bit the way we were handling racism was a lot of clobbering people. You will not be racist, right? Remember, we don't clobber people. We try not to clobber people. When we're at our best, we do not clobber. But about 8 years ago, we realized that we were good at battling oppressions outside of us, right? But we're not as good at looking at our own internal and unconscious and systemic forms of oppression. And we had learned a lot. And so there was a great push by many, both people of color and white people alike, to make our third and final push to end racism, sexism, ableism, ageism, homophobia, transphobia, all the isms and all the phobias as best we can. And we want to get it right this time. So, to that end, a few years ago, a group of congregants proposed the 8th principle, right? That was to go along with our 7 principles, right? And we talked about this before. The 8th principle, here's a reminder, this was the 8th principle. It affirms and promotes journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. And we talked about this, and we were going to talk about it a lot more, but then some other things happened. So last I heard, about 15 to 20% of our congregations had adopted this 8th principle, because remember, our polity is, you can add, no problem, you can do whatever you want in your congregations, right? But a lot of people felt it was too wordy, it was a little unclear in certain parts of it. Some people thought, you know, well, dignity and worth of all people, doesn't that cover, you know, the same thing? So the board of the UUA asked for a commission to be put together to look at all of our principles and sources and see if there was another way we wanted to approach this, right? It was time for us to also do an examination. So this is, by the way, the people that were on the commission. So you have Paula, Rob, Maya, Cheryl, and Satya. The 3 women in the back there, I believe, are either on the board or were liaisons or staff members that were in the picture. But those are the 5 people that were part of this commission. And they went out and they talked to people and got all sorts of information together. And we had a draft last fall. They listened to the feedback on that draft and they radically changed things. Well, not radically, but they changed quite a lot. So, and that new draft is what you have in your handout. Okay, it's on the page 2, front and back. So I want to make sure that you have those there. So, let's see here. So this is the proposed changing. So some people think that are excited by all of these changes. They're like, yay, yes, this is wonderful, but others are not. So the 8th principle has kind of been put aside for a little bit, and now we're looking at revamping everything. And you'll see where the 8th principle kind of comes in a little bit here and there. But other people, they like our principles and sources, and they don't want it to change. Like, why are we changing this? They're wonderful. They're the reason why I started coming to this church, right? Now, I personally don't believe that our principles and sources are disappearing. I think they're transforming. I think that there is a way of, there may be a better representation of who we are now. And the proposed Article 2, I think, brings anti-oppression work into the mainstream of who we are. Now, it's not the only thing about who we are, but it's a big part of who we are, and it always has been. but the new proposed changes makes it a little bit more explicit. So after the service, by the way, we're going to give you a chance. You're going to hear me talk a lot this morning. I apologize. It's going to be a lot of talking, but you're going to get your chance to talk. 30 minutes after the service, so we'll get coffee, 15 minutes, and then for 30 minutes we're going to have a discussion here for anybody who would like to talk about Article 2, the proposed changes, right? We're going to put people in small groups if they would like, or we might have one big group. We'll see how it goes. So I wanted to just go through this a bit to show you what I think of as kind of more of a transformation. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but to show you that there are differences, but these values that we hold dear, I believe that they're actually stated elsewhere or differently within the bylaws. So, oh, by the way, so this also, by the way, so this is part 2. This is, yeah, it was wordy before. Yeah, it's much more wordier now. So notice that it also still has an inspirations, inclusion, and freedom of belief clause in Article 2. So they don't have an anti-discrimination clause, they have an inclusion clause, is what they're calling it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So at any rate, so our first principle is the inherent dignity and worth of every person, right? This is my personal favorite of all of them, because I believe that that is true in a huge way. It's a humanist statement, and I am a religious humanist. So at any rate, it comes under the point where it says equity, is where we declare every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness, right? And then it says we covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Now, one of the things that I kind of like about this additional sentence that's put on there is it asks us to do something, right? Because it doesn't just say, oh yes, everybody gets dignity and worth and we just get to go, and nod our heads. It's saying, no, put your money where your mouth is, right? Like, do something about it. So I kind of like that one, actually. So the second one is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. That's the current principle. So this one is actually kind of all over, in many different places here, but this is probably the closest one that I could come up with in terms of proposed change. Now, I have to admit, I always thought this principle, the original one, was a little bit redundant to some of the others. Because we have, we work toward peace, liberty, and justice for all. There's compassion, there's like lots of things. But the one thing I do miss is that the word compassion. Because I think that justice and equity are definitely there, but I miss that word compassion. However, if you noticed back here, love is at the center on this graphic, right? And that graphic is actually in the bylaws. That's part of the proposal, okay? So love is at the center, and it talks about that loving, building on the foundation of love. So I really kind of like that in terms of a thing. So let's see here. So this is our, so the third principle then is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. I thought this one was sort of interesting because they did listen to people really wanted to have the part where it says encouragement to spiritual growth, and so they added it in there. We confident to collectively transform spiritually and ethically, openness to change, all of that sort of thing. And then they also put down under the inclusion clause a little bit more about kind of acceptance. That word acceptance is not in there, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it is part of our inclusion to say we're all included. So you can decide whether or not you like that or not. Fourth principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This was a big one that was not in there originally in the original draft, and then they brought it over and said, okay, we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning, right? So this principle is we celebrate that we're all sacred beings, diverse in cultural experience and theology. And we embrace our differences and commonalities. You could call that acceptance if you want. One of the things I just want to note here, also, whoops, wait a minute, did I miss something here? Oh, yes. Notice that the word love there on the last bottom thing is capitalized. I found that interesting, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I find it interesting, isn't it? Okay. So the fifth principle, All right, this is the gift of the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations in society at large. So we have also, this comes under justice and section C 2.5 in freedom of belief. Now, I was initially actually a little bit concerned about this one because I believe in democracy. I believe in our polity deeply, right? So I was actually looking at the rest of our bylaws. And actually under Article 3, which is under membership, it says the Unitarian Universal is made up of a voluntary association of autonomous, self-governing member congregations which have freely chosen to pursue common goals together. And then in the next section, it lays out congregational polity that says nothing in these bylaws shall be construed as infringing upon the congregational polity or internal self-government of member congregations, including the exclusive right of each congregation to call and ordain their own ministers or a minister or ministers and to control its own property and funds. Good. I want to make sure that we acknowledge our polity. That's a big deal to me. All right, so our sixth principle, the goal of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all, right? This is another one, part of in our purposes. It comes out there. We're like, we are here. The purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. To me, that's transforming these words. And you also kind of see it in the justice and equity parts as well. The seventh principle is almost there, almost exactly. We honor the intimate web of all existence. We covenant to cherish the earth, etc. The other thing is it's also kind of under the one of the what do you call it? Values of generosity. Now, generosity, by the way, is a new value. We've never had this. It wasn't named anywhere in our principles. This is a new one. But it's kind of there in our principles in other ways. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely come compassionately. Oh, yay, there's the word compassion. To share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. So it's kind of been there in interdependence. But I find that interesting that they added that one in. I actually personally really like it. So then if you look at our sources, okay, so here's our sources where the current sources are listed out there, 1 through 6. And then here on our inspirations, we have this kind of lovely little saying that's basically, as Unitarian Universalists, we are inspired by secular and sacred and secular understandings. And yeah, I'll let you read it. You know, if you look at our current list, one of the things that always kind of bothered me a little bit was that we have world religions, and then we have Judeo-Christian, right? Yeah. It's like, well, aren't Judeo-Christian part of world religions? So it felt a little bit redundant to me, but I understand a lot of people, that was kind of a nod to the fact that we came out of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Now, initially I was like, you know, it's fine. You know, it kind of, this paragraph kind of covers everything. It's kind of, you know, but then I started thinking about it, and I realized that while this list over here feels a little bit sometimes like overkill, like it lists everything, there's some things on it that I think bear listing. And one of them in particular is the humanist teachings. Now, I'm a theist, okay? So I believe in an inbreaking presence that invites us into relationship with one another and with it. But I love reason and science, okay? You all know how much I love science. I love preaching on science. And it warns against the idolatries of the mind and spirit. To me, I think that's actually a really important statement. And I'm going to propose an amendment that's put in there, because I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from other churches. And for us to embrace that, I think, is very important. So in looking at all these differences, they're not exactly the same as our principles as we have them, but they do represent my values. At least that's how I feel. And by the way, you're getting Sean's opinion. You're okay, right? We're UUs. You can have your own opinion. We're totally fine with that. And none of this is set in stone right now. We're continuing the process of getting feedback, and also we're going to be now, I think in May, they're looking at amendments. It has to be approved, so we meet, we have what's called General Assembly, that it meets once a year in June, and it varies where they meet. But this June, it has to pass by a simple majority in order to go forward. And then next year, it has to pass by a 2/3 majority in order to go forward, right? So this is not a done deal. I do know, however, I don't think you can change things between the years. It has to be passed as is. So now is the time to actually do your amendments, get it out there, get your opinion out there. If you don't like it, that's okay too. So the other thing I want to mention is about our polity, right? This is for the association. This is not necessarily for this church, okay? Remember, we have freedom of our expression. You can adopt the new, or you can keep the principles if you want, right? Everybody has their own beliefs and what they would like to do. When you look at the member requirements, they ask that you be in sympathy with these, okay? So I just want to put that out there because that's part of our polity and why I wanted to give you Polity 101. All right, so you can keep them, you can adopt the values, it's your theology, your values, your principles are your own. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story. You remember back in 2000 and the recount in Florida? Remember those hanging chads, right? And that whole, the recount of the election between Al Gore and George W. Bush. And it came down to Florida, right? And it came down to a few thousand votes and these hanging chads, right? Because they used punch cards for voting. Now, my brother at that time was traveling around Central America, and he told me that the people there would come up to him, they'd talk to him because they were absolutely fascinated by this election. And they were like, okay, wait a minute. So the two opposing parties came down to one state. He's like, yep. Mm-hmm. So in the state where the Republican president won was controlled by his party. Yep. And the person who certified the election was Republican. Yep. And the president-elect's brother was the governor of Florida. Yep. And there was no rioting in the streets? Nope. And they were like, how did you do this? How is it people aren't, overcome and overthrowing the government because of this? And he said, because we trust the democratic process. We don't always agree with the outcome, but we trust the process. And democracy cannot survive unless we trust the process. Obviously, a process that's done with integrity. And I trust this process that we've been doing. Everyone has been given a chance to voice their opinions. We're getting them from you. And people are listened to and can vote, can be taken and will be taken. In fact, we have 3 delegates who are going to go to GA. I get to vote as well. There's 3 delegates. So that is Nancy Lockery, who's the president of our congregation. Tom Lockery, also, who might be online. Hey, Tom. He is back east doing some work with the UUA, as a matter of fact, and Maureen McConaughey is going to be our 3rd delegate. So, yes, thank you all for serving. This is great. So we'll get a chance for everybody to give their opinion. So we need to distinguish between trusting the process and blaming the process when we don't get our way, right? Which has been a big problem in the last few years. But like back in 2000 or even more recently in a democracy, some people are going to be disappointed. There's no getting around this, right? You remember when people said they were going to move to Canada, that happens every time. People don't wait, but nobody really moves, so that's good. So the proposed changes passed by the General Assembly this June, some of us will be disappointed. There's no getting around it, right? And if they don't pass GA this June, some of us are going to be disappointed, but that is part of the process. That's part of democracy. Now, for me at least, it isn't going to change how I preach. It's not going to change my love for you all, one way or another. And why? Because for me, it just transforms the principles that I hold dear and that I value. So ultimately, we have to remember that love is at the center of what we do, whether or not it's on a nifty new graphic or not, right? We say love is the spirit of this church every single Sunday, and that is what it needs to be. This is why we covenant. Our unison affirmation is a covenant with one another. Our covenant is simply a promise that says wherever we lead, we're going to do this together, right? As Hope Johnson said, we are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive, and we care deeply. We live our love as best we can. May it be so. Blessed be, and let us sing.
Please rise in body or spirit. To be humble, to be kind, it is a giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. To be bold and to be brave, it is the thinking that the heart can still be saved, and the darkness can come quick. The danger's in the anger and in the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. Tell me what it is that you see, a world that's full of endless possibilities, and heroes don't look like they used to, they look like you do. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other. One more time. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of the church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing 1/2 of the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, it appears to be Build Futures. Unfortunately, we've noticed recently that our plate share donations are down, and we want to remind you of the multiple ways you can support the church and build futures. You can mail a check, you can go through our website, use an app called Vanco Mobile, or use the basket by the door as you leave. Our Zoom usher will also put a link to the plate share in the chat for our Zoomers. All the information is on our website, should you need it. Thank you for your continued generosity.
Let justice roll down like water.
Now, please join us in singing. We gather together this song that puts our intentions into words and expresses our gratitude for the many gifts we share. We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Now is that time when we honor the important events and people in our lives, and you are welcome, one and all, whether you're a member, a friend, or a visitor, to join in what we call this ritual of joys and sorrows. And the idea is that you come forward and light a candle to honor that. I'd like to invite Judith Stamper up here. She's one of our pastoral care team members, and she'll assist you in lighting a candle. Now, if you'd like to share your joy or sorrow with the congregation, you can write it down on a slip of paper, which the ushers have over here if you didn't write one out ahead of time. Just hand it to me as you come forward to light your candle, and then I'll read them out loud. Zoomers, you can write it in the chat, and then I'll read out loud, and Judith will light a candle for you. And you're also, of course, welcome to light a candle at home. So please come forward and light your candle. So I have a candle of joy to be lit for Linda C., who is our editor of The Reach, which is our monthly newsletter. And she says, all contributions for our newsletter, The Reach, came in early and on time. Thank you. And Hannah A. says, a candle of joy and appreciation for the Hearts Grove book group that started last Thursday. She said, yeah, I know these guys are there too. Hannah said, love seeing some of you there, meeting new people, and having the opportunity to deepen my understanding of paganism and Unitarian Universalism. Awesome. And Barbara S. would like a candle lit. As you know, Barbara's been home recuperating. And she says, on Friday, I was able to get into my sister's Forester first try on my own, and this means that she can go to her mom's memorial service in Fresno at the end of May. Yay! That's awesome. And then Donald, Emma, you know, Donald had been in the hospital earlier this week, and he says, I'm back among the vertical. Yay! He says, thanks so much for all your good thoughts and wishes while I was in Hoag Hospital. Amen to that. We're so glad he's back. All right, and then here in our congregation, Simone B. says she lit a candle of joy. She said for her grandson, Hayes, is celebrating his 2nd birthday today in Portland. And she said, my youngest son, Paul, who lives near London, called her from the Eiffel Tower. Called yesterday, and she said it was his son, Sebastian's, who's 5 years old, first time visiting Paris. You know, Simone, our wonderful French, yes, go. Yeah. Right on. And then Craig P., he lit a candle of joy, he said, for his mother, Kay, who taught and modeled UU principles and supports my many Earth Day actions. She loves yellow, and today's flowers were dedicated to her. That's awesome. And Nancy L., our president, she says she lit a candle of joy. She said this week's marks 1 year since she and Tracy, who's back there running our video, she and Tracy drove to the Mexican border to pick up the first Ukrainian guests. If you remember back then, Ukrainians were coming across the border there, and they had no place to go. And we now have them here. She says it's been a great year. Yeah. She says it's sad that we still have to do it, but really glad that we can help. Amen to that. There's some wonderful things where people are teaching English here. It's wonderful. Things are going on. So, all right, let us hold in love all the joys and celebrations and all the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect. And let all these moments, these universal moments, remind us that we're not alone. Please join Judith in a spirit of prayer.
These are words from Tamara Laback. God of many names, let us remember this day that in this country there is no national religion. There is no superior race. There is no preferable gender or orientation. We gather holding a common value that the glory of this country rests first and foremost in its diversity. Out of many ideas, out of many beliefs, out of many views, out of many voices, out of many passions, out of many experiences, we are one. Help us, O God of many names, to never forget that we need not think alike to love alike. Blessed be.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are a congregation made up of people who all believe differently, and yet when we gather together, whether we are in the room or on Zoom, we make up one loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. If you are a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become part of this beloved community. We encourage you to either write in the chat if you are a Zoomer, or if you are a roomer, to stand for a brief moment and tell us your name or where you are from.
Hi, we're Melanie and Prasan Malavia. We just moved here from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ryan. I am from Huntington Beach, and this is my wife, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. I was here last week with my kids, and this week I brought my husband. So.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. If you'd like to know more about our church, including programming for youth and children, please contact us at hello@ocuc.org and we'll help you get connected. In addition, we invite you to sign up for our weekly email called The Blast at blast@ocuc.org. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out.
And of course, there's announcements because we do church all week long in all different kinds of ways and lots of fun things going on here. So as I mentioned earlier, 15 minutes after the service, go get your coffee, chat with people. And then we invite you to come back if you'd like to be part of the discussion about Article 2. Get your feedback. Maybe you were like triggered by something or you were like excited about it or whatever your opinion is. Come back and talk to us about it because also we want the delegates to hear from you as well. So we also have our big auction is coming up on May 20th. Put that on your calendar. So if you're new and you've never done an auction before, it's loaded of fun. So it's a fundraiser for the church. And the idea is that people offer something and then you sign up and you bid for it, and all that money goes to the church. So, for example, I'm going to do an escape room. If you've ever done an escape room, they're so much fun. So hopefully, and I'll pay for that, and then the money, then you bid on it, and you can go to that. A lot of people do dinners that people do, and see this wonderful woman over here with the sombrero. See her, she'll sign you up for things, and there's also, you pay for the dinner. There's need a ticket for the dinner, which is $15, I believe? Yes. Yeah, yes.
You only have 1 week left.
Sorry, 1 week left in which to get your thing in. Thank you, good to know. Gotcha. And I have some other things that I'll be doing. Okay, all right. So other things that are going on, you can see all these other different things that are going on here. The other thing that's happening is you see down at the bottom, we have a Life Changes group starting. So this is to support anyone who's going through any type of life change. That could be, losing someone, it could be grief, it could be starting a new job, giving up an old career, all of those big transitions that happen in our lives. And so we want to invite you to be a part of that. The Life Changes group, it should be, the information will be on our calendar for hooking up at Zoom. We have it at noons in case some people work, that kind of thing. But if you just want to come to a supportive, loving environment, we invite you to do that there. So let's see here. All right. By the way, Zoomers, Phyllis will be leading the discussion online about Article 2 for y'all, so you don't have to leave or necessarily have to do it here. Phyllis will be doing that for you. Okay, I think that's it. And just remember that we are one, we are love, and we are how we treat each other when the day is done. Let us sing. This service is over. Let our service continue.